Not exactly. In fact, 3 out of 4 times. As you heard in today's passage from the Gospel of Luke, there are no hosannas in Luke, and there are no palm branches. In fact, it's not really much of a celebration at all. In fact, it certainly sounds like Jesus set it up, because that whole business of riding the donkey in from the Mount of Olivet, that, according to Zechariah, is how the Messiah is supposed to arrive. And it didn't just kind of happen. Jesus set it up. And then as he comes into Jerusalem, it says that, according to Luke, the crowds were celebrating the deeds of power they had seen him do. All of the healing, all of the exorcisms, right? Casting out demons. All of those times that Jesus spoke up for the poor and the marginalized, how Jesus helped people who were marginalized be restored. All those stories we've been hearing for weeks now. That's what they were yelling about. And what they were yelling about was annoying the Pharisees, the temple authorities. And of course it was. Because, of course, by now, as I'm sure you're aware from reading the Gospel of Luke, by now they've decided that Jesus should die. The story's not over yet, though. There are things that happen between now and that. But here's Jesus coming to Jerusalem. The crowd is celebrating who Jesus is and what he's done, and the Pharisees say, "Make your people be quiet, Jesus. Make them behave." What if there's a riot? Remember in Jesus Christ Superstar? There's the bit where the hosannas, Hosanna, hey, that thing? And the Pharisees are off at the side hoping that it doesn't cause, well, of course they're hoping it doesn't cause a riot, because that'll get the attention of the Romans. And because Passover was coming up, there was more of them in Jerusalem right now, because they want to make sure to keep the peace when there's a major festival. So the Pharisees were not just concerned about how Jesus was affecting them and challenging their own power. They were also worried about what the Romans might do if Jesus lets things get out of hand. And not only is that bad for the people, don't get me wrong, they weren't really thinking of the people. It's going to come back on them. Because they're supposed to be in charge of the people, aren't they? And here's Jesus once again challenging them. And Jesus says, "If I tell them to be quiet, the stones themselves will shout out." For all of those times that we celebrate Palm Sunday with the waving of palm branches and shouts of Hosanna, however we might mean those things, we mean it as a celebration. It's a party. I remember being terribly confused about this as a kid because I was a choir boy in an English cathedral kind of program, and it was very solemn. On Palm Sunday, we processed around carrying our palm branches, and we had those big long yellow things, right? And we have that on one shoulder, hymn book in the other hand. You had to practice that, by the way, so that you could walk steady and sing the hymn, which, by the way, was either All Glory, Laud, and Honor, or the hymn we sang earlier. Hosanna, loud Hosanna. The little children sang. Oh, wait, there's no children in Luke's account either. But then as I got older, and I worked as a musician in churches, I'd see how many times we tried to sell this story as a parade so that the children could be involved. It was a good time. We waved palm branches and we sang happy songs because that's how the story goes. Except in Luke, where there are no palm branches, no hosannas, no happy children. In fact, the only people who appear to be joyful are the people who are celebrating what they have seen Jesus do, not what they hope he's going to do. And I just think the way Luke tells this story reminds us that this isn't a moment of celebration that's comparable to next week. Not that we know what's happening next week, spoiler alert, because these people definitely didn't. But what Luke's on about is, even in this moment, Jesus continues to challenge authority. Jesus continues to challenge the status quo. Jesus continues to remind people to speak up, to stand out, to do those very things that they are celebrating having seen him do, those deeds of power. Because Jesus knows that even if voices are quieted, the stones will shout out, because you can't kill hope. You can't end people speaking out about oppression and injustice. You can't stop people from helping others to heal. You can't stop people from offering kindness, offering care in grief. You can't stop people from love. And Jesus knows that even if his voice is stilled, others will take up that cry. If you follow the story, spoilers, if you follow the story into Holy Week, and I hope you do, each day something happens that brings us closer to that moment where Jesus appears to be a failure. If you stop reading on Good Friday, Jesus failed. Because he's ended. His voice is stopped. In fact, if you read into Saturday, there is silence. But it isn't where the story ends. The voice isn't stilled. In fact, it comes back stronger because Jesus is alive in each of us. The voice of care and love, the voice that cries out against oppression and injustice, it's alive in each of us. Even the stones will cry out. I think that's the point of Luke's story. I think that's why he doesn't have palm branches and hosannas. I think he has the bit where Jesus is welcomed as a Messiah and as a king, and people are talking about all the amazing things he's done to remind us that that voice can't be stilled. That action can't be stopped. Hope can't be ended. It will come back stronger, like stone. That's our job, because that's how Jesus is alive in us. Spoiler, I just leapt to next Sunday. That's how Jesus is alive in us. You have a voice. Use it.